When most people think of a superhero, they basically think of someone in tight spandex and a cape, posing, looking heroic. And that tends to be what's translated into action figures. But when you read comic books, characters come to life and often have, well, very, very visual powers with, giant bursts of energy. I guess, Yu-Gi-Oh! And a lot of the Japanese anime that came over really jump-started this and pushed it to the forefront. But we have started in the last, 10, 15 years or so, getting a lot of really cool blast effects that come with figures. This is something we really didn't get back in the 80s or the 70s. I mean, good luck finding a Mego figure with, rocket effects to strap into their boot. It just wasn't something that toy makers were doing. And honestly, it's one of my absolute favorite parts about modern figures. Yeah, I mean, we do get a lot of blast effects that get reused over and over again, but honestly, that's usually not a big deal when they are appropriate. And it's great that for, some unique figures, and as new characters are developed, we are getting new blast effects. We don't just always get the same one. But we do sometimes get the same one over and over again. There tends to be some blast effects in particular, especially on Marvel Legends, like this Scarlet Witch here, who comes with what I call the spiky magic effect and the twisty energy effect. So that's the spiky energy one there, which can clip onto hands, and yeah, it gets used on a lot of figures, just cast in different plastic colors. And then there's the creepy energy around the hand that can be used for flame effects or for magic effects, like on Scarlet Witch here. But again, it's the same little curly piece of plastic that goes around the arm to show off the visual powers. Now, one of the probably most repeated ones in Marvel Legends is the sort of space bubble effect, as I call it, which is honestly one of my favorites, but it does tend to get overused when you realize every single character on your shelf is blasting the same effect, just in a different color. I mean, when you read a comic book, obviously, blasts usually are the same. The character, I think, though, that came with the greatest effect ever was this Earth's Mightiest Heroes Avengers Scarlet Witch. I mean, this was her accessory. It is flippin' awesome. I think I really should track down another copy of this figure just to get that blast effect, because, I mean, come on, that's just like out of control cool. All right, let's jump back to modern figures. So, yeah, something that we did not get as kids that we're getting more and more, and while there's definitely play value for display, having the visual powers of a character really makes them come to life on your shelf. They're no longer just standing waiting for the bus, but they're, kind of in battle. And as I said, some characters get unique energy bursts, like this Boom Boom figure. Others, it's a little bit more confusing. So Jubilee is an example. When she was released as a single carded figure, she didn't come with any blast effects at all, which a lot of fans were disappointed with because her powers are very visual. When she was re-released as part of the animation line, she got the curly, twisty effect that is also on the Human Torch and Scarlet Witch earlier in this video. And while that's cool, there's actually an earlier version of her that had very unique blast effects that were much more attuned to her powers that oddly were not included with either release. This was the Build-A-Figure version of Jubilee that came out, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. She was the Build-A-Figure in that Toys R Us X-Men wave, and her blast effects came with Strife. And they fit perfectly on the new version. And they look really cool because they were designed for Jubilee. It's kind of weird that effects designed for her haven't been included again. I was wondering if maybe it was because the tool wasn't available anymore. But we know that Hasbro still has the tool for Strife, and usually the Build-A-Figure component is tooled with the figure. At least that's kind of how I think we used to do it back in my Mattel days. But perhaps they were different tools, and maybe this tool isn't, they just have the Strife and they didn't have the Build-A-Figure components. I don't know. I don't work for Hasbro. But I'd love to know, because those were great blast effects, and I feel like they never use them, especially when they're re-releasing Jubilee over and over again. You'd think they'd want to, use the effects that work for her. Another one that Marvel developed, character-specific, were these sort of cosmic blasts, but they only get issued with versions of Carol Danvers, whether it's in her binary form or her Captain Marvel form. I don't think they've issued the sort of flame circle arm effect with anyone else. So it's odd that these two characters have effects that are specific to them but don't get shared with other figures when you have other effects like the bubble effect or the spiky magic effect that go with everyone. Now the other type is the blast effects that we don't seem to get, that it feels like we should, like Cyclops Optic Blast. I mean, that would be awesome, right? There's been a couple figures that have had a little bit of sort of like a fuzz or a fizz coming off of his mask. And going back to Jubilee, even the effects that have been created for her don't really illustrate her visual powers as well as, say, these custom effects that fans have created. And it really shows how much an energy effect can bring a figure to life. This is why secondary market effects have become a big thing, because fans want to be able to pose their figures in battle, in action, and not just have them standing looking like they're waiting for the bus. That's actually a toy term when you have a figure that's just, looking straight at you. It's called a waiting for the bus figure. So yeah, would it be cool to have Iceman blasting out a huge ice slide? Awesome. Is Hasbro going to make that anytime soon? Probably not. Which is why we turn to other things. So, for example, I bought this Power Rangers King Sphinx figure. I'm not a huge Power Rangers fan, but I am a hieroglyphics fan, and I love anytime there's hieroglyphics showing on an action figure. It doesn't happen that much. And while I had him on display on my Egypt shelf, I took his blast effect and gave it to Firestar here, which honestly matches her perfectly. It looks great. And it's cool that you can mix and match blast effects from different lines if you find a more appropriate character. You can take blast effects from a DC figure and give them to a Marvel figure, or Power Rangers, or DC, or I said DC, I don't know, Indiana Jones, anybody. They work for any 6-inch figure. And there's also companies like Super Action Stuff that do non-licensed accessories, which work great with 6-inch figures. I particularly like that you can get both pizza boxes and edibles, tacos, all sorts of chicken legs. These things look really great posed with figures. And they also do blast effects as well. And this is clearly showing that there is a market for this for collectors, and that toy companies really should look at including more and more of these type of accessories for adult collectors, because clearly we want to display our figures coming to life. And one of the things that makes a character much more toyetic is visual powers, which is why Superman doesn't sell as well as, say, example, Batman, but, anyone who has visual powers. Superman, yeah, he blasts from the eyes, but he's a tough sell because he doesn't have the visual powers. You can't really clip on, energy blasts in his hands the way you can with, a lot of mutant characters or Avengers or, et cetera, et cetera. It really is the key to bringing your figures to the next level. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd love to know in the comment section, what do you think of blast effects? Do you display with them? Do you mix and match them? Do you throw them in a drawer and not look at them at all? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, thanks for sharing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.